Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hey, thank you. My name is Michael. I'm a practitioner here at Santa Fe Soul, and I have two specialties. I do mind and body. From the mind point of view, I look at everything from a symbolic perspective, helping the individual to understand the emotional conflict that leads to any physical condition. I also look at accidents, events, dreams, situations, experiences from a symbolic point of view. And by reading the symbols gives insight into the individual to help them understand what is going on currently in their life. From a body point of view, everything I do is about nutrition based on naturopathic principles. I'm a firm believer that the body is the magic, the body is the healer. You just have to give the body what it requires, and its own divine intelligence will bring the body back to balance and harmony. It seeks balance and harmony. What gets in the way is what's between our ears. Marketing, advertising, and our subconscious concepts and our belief systems. So having said that, this evening we're going to talk about fighting and avoiding cancer and the 7 fundamental causes. And they are, to begin with, chemicals, free radicals, viruses, and the 4 that no one talks about: anger, frustration, resentment, and guilt. Because if you think about it, those 4 emotional energies will literally eat you up alive. But tonight we're going to focus on nutrition. Unless anybody has a question about any of those 4 issues, we can discuss those as well. But from a physical part, let's begin first with the elimination of the chemicals and, to some degree, the free radicals. Because cancer is not something you catch. Cancer is something you create. And you create it based on a very old cliche. You are what you eat, as well as you are what you think. So where we want to begin with is the diet. Your diet ideally should be around 70% raw, 30% cooked, or let me rephrase that, 70% raw, 20% cooked, 10% junk. Now what's realistic is 60% raw, 30% cooked, and again 10% junk. And there's a reason for the junk, because if you're working with children, significant other, you want to eliminate the energy of resentment, because they don't want to feel that you're imposing upon them a diet that they're not into keeping. So if you allow them the 10%, you also eliminate the energy of resentment, and you can accomplish your goal. Now when I talk about raw, all of your fruits and veggies should be organically grown. And you'll understand that why that is such an essential aspect when we get into commercial food. Your grains, again, 100% carbohydrates or 100% full grain, and again, organically grown. If you're going to consume meat, my suggestion is free-range critters that are grass-fed and never grain-fed, because the farmers will spray the grain, but they'll never touch the grass. So you want to do that. When it comes to fowl, you're going to want to look at turkey over chicken, because turkey has less fat than chicken. Yep. And again, free-range critters, organically fed. And you'll understand the importance of the fat as we get into how the human body works. When it comes to fowl, I always recommend people go back to Leviticus chapter 11, deep sea fish with scales. I do not recommend freshwater fish, because you cannot trust the water in this country. And the only water that I ever do recommend is distilled. I think everyone should own a distiller, or at least purchase distilled water. When it comes to dairy, less is best. And that's all I'll say about dairy. So that will give you some good basic foundation about food. As I go along, if a question comes to mind, please do not hesitate to ask. At my age, I have some timers, so I don't remember everything that I'm supposed to tell you. You're free to use it.
How many over 40 moments?
40. When was 40? I don't even remember that number. Having said that, okay, so now let's talk about the causes. Let's talk about chemicals first and foremost. What's really fascinating, I just recently came across an article that close to 95% of the food grown in this country is GMO'd. Now you take that into consideration, and then you move into the fact that we use herbicides, pesticides for the soil enhancement. Then you look at water, it's got clarifiers, acidifiers, pacifiers, because we can't have you waking up. It's not good for the government. So the body is bringing in all of these chemicals through the foods that you're eating. You can't do very much about the air, but you can certainly protect yourself from a liquid and solid intake. Now what happens is that right now your body is making, in theory, 1 million new cells. And based on, if you all remember, Murphy's Law states that if something can go wrong, it will. And actually, Murphy is not the guy who came up with that. A man by the name of Finnegan did. But that's a different story. And so take... Well, yeah, so there was that proved the law. So consider this, that out of the 1 million cells you're making right now, 200,000 may become corrupted. Why? It really depends on what you had for dinner and what chemicals are now in your bloodstream, because it is your bloodstream that is the source of nutrients for your body's process of making new cells. One of 3 things are going to happen. Either the toxin, as the cell is dividing, the toxin may damage the DNA of the new cell. And that happens, one of 2 things will occur. You're creating a cell that no longer looks right, and you're setting up the foundation for disease and aging, not to mention the fact that because the cell doesn't look right, it also doesn't function properly. So there's that. Another possibility is that within the cells you have genes, and your genes manufacture proteins predominantly. And your body runs on enzymes and proteins. Now, when the gene is manufacturing the protein, imagine this, if you will, in your mind's eye. A picket fence, and a toxin comes along and opens the fence. You now have a corrupted gene that has created a protein that no longer fights tumors. Now you're tumor prone. Now imagine the gate is supposed to be open, toxin comes along and closes it. Now your body or your cells are rapidly multiplying uncontrollably. What condition is that? Cancer. Okay? So when they tell you they don't know what causes cancer, tell them go and get the Dorland Medical Dictionary and look it up. And it'll tell you that cancer is caused by chemical mutations. So that's one avenue. The next thing I mentioned was free radicals. And we all remember the free radicals from the 60s. They were trying to balance out society. Well, your body works the same way. And in this case, what happens is that you have what's called singlet oxygen, which means that the oxygen atom, which has 2 protons in the nucleus and is supposed to have 2 electrons in the outer orbit, well, because of transactions, because of chemicals, there is an electron missing. So that atom seeks balance and harmony. Everything in nature but man seeks balance and harmony. And so what happens is that oxygen atom will pull an electron from here or there, from anywhere it possibly can, in order to balance itself out. Well, that literally creates a chain reaction, which in turn will also damage cells. So now we're back to damaged cells yet again. Last but not least are viruses. And I'm going to use a catch-all term for viruses, meaning any kind of a living entity that doesn't belong inside of you. And what happens there is that they too can corrupt the DNA and corrupt the cells. And so now we're off and running. So what we want to do is first and foremost deal with fixing the way that the body deals with the chemicals. Because what happens is that even though these chemicals are in your bloodstream, when they get to your liver seeks to render them harmless. And what cannot be rendered harmless will end up being stored in the fat. And this is one of the reasons why we're seeing increases in breast cancer, not only in younger women more than ever before, but in men as well. We're also seeing increases in young men with testicular cancer, and we're seeing babies with cancer and children with cancer. And obviously part of it is the diet. So what we want to do is first we want to try to clean out the blood. And the way we do that is because your body, let me back up a minute, your body has an ongoing detoxification and cleansing process, because if it didn't, you would become septic and die, because of the way the body works. So to detox, to keep that system going, you need iron, manganese, molybdenum, and zinc. These 4 minerals are fundamentally essential for the proper functioning of the detoxification process in your body. In addition, you want to look at herbs like red clover, yellow dock, burdock root. These are wonderful blood purifiers. Okay? Next up is we want to work on the liver. Now, what happens with the liver is because of the hydrogenated fats, the saturated fats, the trans fats, and if you have a tendency to do imbibing a little bit, alcohol is going to gum up the liver. And if it gums up the liver, it's not going to work nearly, as effective as it should. So we want to break down the fatty deposits in the liver. To do that, choline, inositol, methionine, lecithin, unsaturated fatty acids. Choline, inositol, and methionine used to be called, in the old days, lipotropic nutrients. Lipo for fat, tropic for heat, because it would help to metabolize the fat. Lecithin is a fabulous nutrient. You can do it either as a granule, mix it in your foods. You could do it as a capsule. And even though it's an oil, the beautiful thing about lecithin is that once it's in your bloodstream, it will bond to oils and it's water dispersible. So you can end up urinating out your toxins and your fats. Also, you want to look at, unsaturated fatty acids will all help with the metabolic processes. And look at herbs like dandelion root and milk thistle. And the beautiful thing about milk thistle is that it will actually stimulate new cellular growth. So now we've cleaned out the liver, we've cleaned out the blood, we're cleaning out the liver. Yes?
Alpha-lipoic acid.
Also good, also good, but I'm more inclined to want to go with lecithin or unsaturated fatty acids because the body will manufacture alpha-lipoic acid. And this is one of the reasons why people, most people do herbs to fix their problems, which is okay, but it's not the best way. The best way is vitamins and minerals for this simple reason. The body runs on, as I said earlier, proteins. It also runs on enzymes. Vitamins are technically called coenzymes because it is the vitamins that manufacture the enzymes for your body. The minerals are catalysts and cofactors. They facilitate the proper functioning of your muscles and are also involved in enzyme and hormone production. Take a look at zinc is absolutely essential for diabetics because it is a key component to the manufacturing of insulin. Magnesium itself is involved, and when I first came into the health food industry, I was told magnesium was involved in over 300 different metabolic transactions. Today they've come to the number of 10,000. And people do not get enough minerals. In fact, how you can tell you need minerals, if you have leg aches, back aches, charley horses, spasms, palpitations, restless leg, TMJ, growing pains, you hear it in children. All of those are indications that you need minerals. And if you toss and turn and you're an insomniac, same thing. Because insomniacs will get to sleep for a good 2 hours, maybe 3. And after that, they're up. Minerals will help you stay asleep. And the nice thing about it is you will not wake up feeling groggy. So when you do minerals, do them a half hour before bed, 45 minutes, and do a complete multi-mineral. I know some of you buy calcium, some do CalMag, some are sophisticated and do CalMag zinc. But the reality is, and we have affirmation by sneezing. In my tribe, we say when someone sneezes, if they sneezed on the truth. What can I tell you? I'm very tribal. And because don't forget, you need chromium, you need manganese, you need molybdenum, you need iron. So you need all of these minerals. Okay. So also another thing about minerals and why all the cramping and the palpitation, all that kind of stuff, minerals are electrolytes. They allow thought, because your mind is always thinking. And when it sends energy to the cells to tell the cells what to do, it uses your nerve lines as transmissions. However, if there's a breakdown and a light switch doesn't work, it's kind of like going home tonight, the house may be dark, you flick the switch, the electricity illuminates the bulbs. But if the electric switch is not functioning, you're walking into darkness. Same thing happens with the body. If the minerals are not there to allow the electricity of thought to tell the cells what to do, then they may cramp up on you and stay cramped up, or they may become flaccid and not at all. Yes, Adar?
Yeah, just one thing. You didn't mention strontium, but I know recently I've read quite a bit on it. And I know just personally for myself, I wouldn't say it to everybody in here, but I know it has really helped my bone issue a lot more than doing what I call calcium magnesium. And even in that format, I tend to take my calcium magnesium in green form, marshmallow, and all that. But my real question is on the strontium, because I know you can't take the strontium and calcium even though it's considered a mineral. So what would your suggestion be if you're doing strontium? Would you skip?
Well, it's interesting that you would bring that up from 2 points of view. I remember years ago that strontium was considered to be radioactive. I think it was strontium 90?
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, as a practitioner, I stay away from things like that. Mm-hmm. The other side of the coin is by bringing in trace minerals, you'll end up getting some of that. The other side of the coin is that Americans are so drug-oriented that they overdose themselves, and they're always looking for that magic pill, that one magic ingredient that's going to fix them, and it does not exist. If you look at nature, nothing in nature stands alone. Nothing. That's why you should never do separate supplements. You should always do combinations. And again, herbs are wonderful. I use herbs in everything I do, along with my vitamins and minerals and amino acids and whatever else the situation calls for. But from a healing point of view, you must always have vitamins and minerals, because from a naturopathic point of view, you want to nourish the body back to health. You don't want to treat it. You don't want to treat your condition. You want to eliminate it through removing the obstacle that created it, which is a lack of nutrition to begin with. Okay, so that's that part of the liver. Now, we said that the toxins are stored in the fat. And I always tell people, I've never seen a fat person. What I've seen are people that have too much stored fuel, and they're just not running the equipment. So, and if you've ever done a water fast, okay, by day 3, you begin to feel, and some of us begin to smell, like death warmed over. And the reason for that is really very simple. Because the day one, as long as you're not bringing anything into the system, your body's going to go through all the glucose in your bloodstream. In day two, it's going to go through all the stored glycogen from your liver and your muscles. In day three, it's going to go after all that stored energy. And as the body is emulsifying the fat to use it for fuel, it's re-releasing the toxins, and that's why people generally really feel so bad during days 3 and sometimes day 4. After that, you begin to feel better because you're drinking a lot of water and you're flushing out the toxins. So that's that's the chemical part of it. So to dissolve the fat, we're back to a couple of different approaches. One, you want to make sure your thyroid is functioning at optimal levels. That will require iodine. Also, tyrosine and manganese are also essential nutrients for the thyroid. Kelp, which is a source of iodine, bladderwrack, sea-wrack, all of these are good and rich in iodine. Then you want to look at choline, inositol, methionine, the same thing we use to clean out the liver, we're going to use as fat metabolizers, and that will take care of that. Also, it wouldn't hurt to bring in things like potassium B6 and uva ursa, hydrangea, parsley. Those are diuretics. The potassium and B6 will help the cells balance out, and the herbs will stimulate the kidneys to void, and that way you end up getting the toxins out of your system. Okay? So now that takes care of that. Let's go to free radicals. There's some great free radical stuff out there. First off, vitamins A, C, E, glutathione, and herbs like pycnogenol, grapefruit or grape seed extract.
GSE.
PSE? GSE, grapefruit seed extract. Pycnogenol, rosemary is another fabulous herb. And all of those are free radical scavengers. And that actually would be something that everybody should do all the time because it will slow down the aging process. Okay? And that'll help to eliminate the free radicals. So we did the blood, the liver. Now let's go after viruses. And here's an approach that is not only for viruses, but for all the damaged cells in your body. Remember earlier I talked about you made 1 million cells, 800,000 are perfect, 200,000 are corrupt. Go back to your high school days. Do you remember the math problem of taking a penny and doubling it every day for 30 days? Anybody remember that one? Okay. Well, the answer is over $5 million. Now, look at your body. And if you take a consideration, one cell becomes 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Okay, you can see the progression. You do not know that you have an issue until maybe you get to 1 billion sick cells. Then all of a sudden you have discomfort. You've got pain. You've got temperature. You've got something going on. And why does it take 1 billion cells to alert you? Because your body has anywhere from 50 to 100 trillion cells. Okay? So you can begin to see why 100 or why 1 billion would be necessary. Now, what we want to do is we want to, let me rephrase this. What the body does is the body is really designed to protect you from yourself. It tries. We get in the way, but it tries. And the first line of defense that you have is your immune system. And your immune system is like the INS. It circulates throughout your body and it goes up to every single cell. Can I see your identity card? Do you belong here? Are you self or are you non-self? Well, you don't look like everybody else. You got this damage, that damage. I don't think you belong here. And the immune system will gobble that cell up. And it's busy working over here, but guess what? The guys over here are multiplying. Now when it comes over here, it sees there's something going on, and it calls its other buddies to come and help nullify. Well, it may work here, but now there's something going on over here. Okay? So what we want is a good, strong, healthy immune system. And the best nutrient, the very best nutrient, vitamin A. The beautiful thing about vitamin A is that, number one, it goes, every mucous membrane that you have that's exposed to the environment is nurtured by vitamin A. It's your first line of defense. Secondarily, it goes to your thymus gland to help mature your T cells so that they can go out and do battle with whatever infection or virus or whatever is going on in your system. One of the things that I recommend, if you ever feel a cold coming on, you know, the cold, you get a stick at the back of your throat. Well, I recommend that you take anywhere from 10 to 25,000 IUs of vitamin A every hour on the hour, because what you're doing is you're bringing ammunition into your body to support your immune system in its battle against an invading force. Okay? So vitamin A on a daily basis, I recommend a minimum of 25,000 IUs. And that's fish liver oil. If you're doing beta carotene, you could do up to 1 million units. And the only side effect is you'll develop a really interesting color of orange. It's got a nice shade. And we are rainbow people, so it just adds another dimension to our unity. Another great herb, and then if you are sick and you do that kind of vitamin A regimen, I would not do it for more than 3 days, because the goal you want to try to achieve is bringing in anywhere from 200 to 300,000 IUs on a daily basis for 2-3 days, and then no vitamin A. Let your body disperse whatever excess may exist. Next up would be vitamin C. And with vitamin C, I recommend anywhere from 8 to 10,000 milligrams. And you'll know you've reached too much vitamin A if you begin to have loose bowels. Okay, now you know excess leads to rejection. That's its symbol. Also, talking about symbols, let me go back to vitamin A a minute. You know, what does vitamin A also do? What is it also known for? Night vision. It improves our eyesight for night vision. And what is night symbolic of? But on one level, preparation for the activities of the next day, which is why you get dreams, and they're designed to give you guidance to help you move forward. So vitamin A symbolically is the ability to look into the self and to look into doubt. It is very interesting. When you look at the symbology of all the nutrients, it's really fascinating. So vitamin C, another one we want to use for the immune system is zinc. They're anywhere from 10 to 25 milligrams. And if for a man, he may want to use more, especially if there's prostate issues or prostate issues run in the family. B12, cysteine is another good amino acid, or is a good amino acid for the immune system. Some of my favorite herbs for the immune system are, and I just remember something about free radicals I want to go back to, golden seal root. However, whenever you use golden seal root, you have to follow up with a probiotic, because golden seal will kill everything in your intestinal tract indiscriminately. Good and bad. Good and bad, absolutely. It cannot discern the difference. Okay, so always follow up with a probiotic. Echinacea is another fabulous herb. It stimulates interferon. Also, in the old days, echinacea was used as a lymphatic cleanser. So whenever there's lymph congestion, you can use echinacea to break that up. Pau d'arco, Tahibo, is another That's another good one. Black walnut is another good one. Olive leaf is yet another one. Oil of oregano, yet again. Some people use silver. However, silver can lead to turning blue. So excess leads to rejection. So that's too much. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Pollen d'Arco, does that also help the body kill fungus?
Yes. You know, in fact, the tree, the Tahibo tree, what they've discovered is that around the soil within a certain diameter, no fungus can survive. It is amazing. God has provided everything we need. Man is just arrogant and thinks he's smarter. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Okay, so herbs for the immune system. And then you want to look at things like mushrooms like shiitake, maitake. And cordyceps is not a mushroom, but it's part of the family. It's a fungus. And actually in Japan, cordyceps is the first choice in treating cancer. So astragalus is good. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right. Condanopolis is another Chinese herb that is good for the immune system. So those kinds of things will build your immune system. What I forgot to say earlier was from free radicals, vitamin E. Vitamin E is probably the best free radical scavenger for the simple reason that something like pycnogenol, grapefruit, or grape seed extract will work and then it stops working because it can only do so much. Vitamin E has the ability to continue to give up free electrons and still continue to function as a free radical scavenger and an antioxidant. And when it comes to vitamin E, I always recommend people try to take around 1,000 IUs a day. However, you cannot just go out and take 1,000. Take a look at your multiples tonight and see what you're taking. You may find that you already are getting anywhere from 100 to 400 IUs. And then from that point, build slowly. Get yourself a small bottle of 200 IUs and add that in for every day for 10 days. So now you're taking 600 IUs. You're also allowing your body to acclimate to this new level. Because if you take too much vitamin E too quickly, you will elevate blood pressure. Okay, a lot of people aren't aware of that, but that's something that can happen. So slowly over time, acclimate, get yourself up to 1,000 IUs, and you'll slow down the aging process, and we'll all look beautiful for a long time to come. So we took care of free radicals, corruption of the blood, cleaning out the liver, getting rid of fat, building the immune system. The last things that I would leave you with are the 4 energies we talked about: anger, frustration, resentment, and guilt. And what I would do there is I would get myself some blank paper and I would get 4 sheets, just on the off chance that you actually may deal with one of those energies. And at the top, I would, put down what each page is for. In the left hand, I'm dyslexic, so I have to do this and I have to think, which hand is this?
Never know that.
Yeah. Well, if you give me directions, you would. I can't read directions, and I took flying lessons for a while, and once the tower told me to turn 310 to the left, and I went 310 to the right into the wake of a jet and almost lost the plane. So yeah. So I know I'm dyslexic, and I have to think about right and left. So in the left-hand column, list the things that make you angry, frustrated, on each separate sheet, resentful, guilty. Then on the right hand, why? Why does that make you angry? Why does that frustrate you? Why do you resent that? Why do you feel guilty about that? And then as you pursue those questions, obviously questions lead to questions. It's like in the Bible when you read that whole chapter of this one begat and begat and begat and begat. Your thoughts begat thoughts. You have to track them down. You have to find the originating source so you understand what is it that really gets your goat. What is it that makes you so angry? Because look at what happens when you're angry. It's the same thing that happens when you're in love, interestingly enough. Do you remember opening your eyes underwater? You can't see clearly. When you're in love, oh, everything is wonderful. Your eyes will well up. When you're angry, your eyes will well up. In both situations, you cannot see clearly. Isn't that fascinating? So the more you seek to understand the fundamental root cause, the concept in your subconscious mind as to why you are any one of those four energies, then that will help you have some greater insights into self, and it's the beginning of getting control over those emotional energies. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to add something, not so much to question it. I agree with that because I see that very, very often in my practice. But I do have a respect for the work that I've seen, Dr. David Hawkins did with his map of consciousness. And one of the most insidious other emotions, I call it energy emotion, because it's still energy, is shame. And shame is like really on the bottom.
Ah,
then
shame.
You have, he had, I've used it so many times just over the years. I know it goes shame, guilt, then comes apathy, then comes grief and fear. So anger is higher up because the thought is anger will hit you, but you can like burn it off. You can't keep holding anger the way you can hold resentment. Resentment is smaller, it's a little deeper. I have my own little analogies of, anger and resentment. But I know shame really can stick, and it has its own, we had I think the speaker here, it was how shame has such a silent voice, but shame, when it combines with guilt, is just almost deadly, and it is thought to bring on cancer. But shame has to be in there somewhere.
Well, shame, what comes to mind immediately is that shame also is a contributor to anger. It's part of the foundation.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. When I just heard of anger, frustration, I'm like,
well, I'm all about the root.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I'm,
and shame.
Oh, yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying for me, shame has to be in there somewhere, because shame can make you feel guilty, and shame will keep you shut up. And anger to me is when it does burst out, but you will go try to get to the anger because you don't want to talk about your shame.
Well, that's true, because it's shameful. And part of that is tied into a person's belief system. Because one, there needs to be an understanding that no matter what you are going through, no matter what, you brought that on yourself. And, you would say, well, wait a minute, how does that apply to a child? How does that apply, okay? And what we have to take into consideration is the concept of karma. And we have to take into consideration the understanding that every soul that is in the material plane chooses its parents, and it ends up choosing and making choices, even though they don't appear to be their choices, where they end up in situations that can create the shame, the guilt, the anger. Another major thing that is the birth of anger from another point of view is disappointment. Because in some instances, you have expectations. Because your mind works on fulfilling expectations. Because once the expectation is fulfilled, it validates your belief that you maintained about self on some level. Or it validates somebody that you believe in from another point of view. And here's an example, and this is a personal one. because I had to deal with this. I had hired somebody as a national sales manager, someone I had known for years. We worked together. This was a friend. And I realized months into the relationship that this is not right. No, you're supposed to be about sales, not necessarily marketing. So I became disappointed. Okay? That led to anger, which led to a breakdown in communication between the two of us. And eventually we parted. We still talk, we're still friends, but I came to the realization that I was disappointed in the individual. So now when I embark upon a new relationship, I make the effort to truly understand all of the factors that are going to be involved, that are going to be part of my expectations of that relationship, so that there's no disappointment coming from me on my end. And then obviously you always want to live up to your agreements so that there's no disappointment on their end, stimulating anger. So, any questions? Hopefully you feel, yes ma'am.
Can you go back to a bit of the stuff around diabetes?
Diabetes, absolutely. What's interesting from a different point of view, yet again, is that everyone deals with stress. What no one ever hears about, or let me rephrase that, everybody knows that stress compromises calcium, magnesium. What you never hear about is it also compromises zinc. Okay, and I mentioned earlier zinc was a key component to insulin production. Now look what happens when people are under stress. One of the first things that they do is they go for their comfort foods. More often than not, their comfort foods are going to be sweet. So now we're jacking up the sugar in the bloodstream. So we're creating an overload. Now the way that the body works is that your adrenal glands are actually, everybody knows them as the, what is it, fight or flight, okay, the stress centers of the body. But their primary purpose is to monitor the sugar in your bloodstream. Most people don't. And what happens when the sugar goes up, the adrenal glands will talk to the pancreas and tell the pancreas to secrete insulin to bring your sugar levels back down to normal. Now, your sugar levels come into the normal range, your adrenal glands will then tell the pancreas, stop insulin production. Now, most people do not do enough extra nutrients for their adrenal glands. And the best nutrient is pantothenic acid. Pantothenic acid. It's fabulous. Not only does it support the adrenal gland along with vitamin C, but pantothenic acid also becomes betaine hydrochloride, which is essential not only for digestion, but also to carry calcium ions into the bone matrix. So it's essential for people with osteoporosis. And men are developing osteoporosis in record number. Another application of pantothenic acid is it stimulates coenzyme A, which is the beginning of the Krebs cycle, which is the beginning of energy production. Another aspect of it is that it becomes pantothene, so it helps emulsify cholesterol. So pantothenic acid actually is my second favorite nutrient. Vitamin A is number one. And symbolically, it represents inspiration. Now, when you think about the adrenal glands, most people that have adrenal issues are overwhelmed with what's going on. Yeah, that's why the tiredness. Okay, so anyway, we're back to diabetes, and now what happens, what's supposed to happen with the adrenal sugar issue is that when the sugar gets too low, which is actually hypoglycemia, not hyperglycemia, your adrenal gland is supposed to talk to your liver to release glycogen back into the bloodstream so that there's fuel for the cells. What takes place in diabetes is two things. One, we could have insulin-resistant diabetes. Two, there's a strange phenomenon that occurs where the immune system attacks the beta cells in the pancreas and destroys them. and then the person ends up insulin dependent for the rest of their life. With type 2 diabetes, it's just either they're resistant or overwhelmed, in which case by bringing in the proper nutrients, you can fix the problem. The other thing is that everything you eat turns to sugar. Everything. See, the primary purpose of the liver, everyone thinks it's for detoxification. It is not. It is to manufacture glycogen, fuel for the body. Okay? So what happens is that, and this is why diets don't work fundamentally. Everybody's always looking for that magic pill. And the reality is that unless you begin to understand your emotional attachment to every single food on your plate, you will not be able to walk away from it. And the more ethnic and cultural the diet is, the harder it is to walk away. Okay? So by changing your diet, you'll end up really being able not only to control diabetes, but to eliminate. Some of the nutrients you might want to look at would be, as I said, zinc, chromium, B12, Gymnea sylvestre from a Gymnea. It's an herb. Okay. Trying to think of what else. Golden seal will actually lower blood sugar as well, but you have to be careful with it. Nopales, Nepalitos, fabulous food. It's cactus. You can use it as a vegetable. And the beautiful thing about that is that the cactus, the leaves, actually contain a molecule that the body identifies as insulin. Nopalito, Napalito. You can find it in any Mexican supermarket.
Well, we have it.
Yeah, Napalito, and what was the second one?
Cactus.
Oh, it's a cactus, Nopali cactus. Yeah.
We got it in Schwartz, and it's over in the blood sugar system cell.
Okay. Napalito, got it.
Yeah, in fact, I started to use Nopali's in 85 or 86. And how I came across it was I had my nutritional practice in McAllen, Texas, which is right on the border of Reynosa, and became friends with some clients, and they took me over there. I met a curandero, and and we got to talking about diabetes. He asked me what I did. I asked him what he did. He says, solamente nopalitos. I said, wow, okay. Yeah, that's all he used. And I incorporated it into my practice and into my formula when I created a product for that. So, okay.
And we have Michael's products in the store.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other questions?
I probably would have 1,000 questions, except that I'm so overwhelmed by all this new information.
Let's get you a drink instead.
I think the one question, I'll just put it out there. I asked this question before. What is it about medicine? I feel stupid asking this.
Oh,
now.
there's no such thing.
No, it's because the answer is coming in my head as I'm talking to you. I'll just finish the thought. What is it about medicine that makes doctors unwilling to accept some of these natural things that are proven over time in various cultures to be successful, and they don't talk to you like a human being so you can heal yourself?
I think it's probably a 2 or 3-fold answer.
Yeah.
One of them is money. So my partner there is telling me, okay? And it's indoctrination. See, I believe that young people who are called to healing find a way to either become a naturopath, a chiropractor, acupuncturist, an herbalist, or an allopath. And some of them may be driven by, well, if I become a medical doctor, an allopath, I'll make a lot of money. Because I've had people tell me, no, some of the new kids coming in are all about the money. That's number one. Number two, they're really not trained in the nutritional aspects of the human body. They don't know how to nourish a body. They are, as I'm accustomed to saying, glorified mechanics working on a piece of equipment they do not understand.
I think that's beautifully stated.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay? The next thing that happens is that they are programmed. You know, the human mind is a biocomputer. And you can program it, and when it's receptive, it will bring in anything you tell it, and it becomes gospel. And so you have pharmaceutical reps and professors who are owned by pharmaceutical companies, preaching that particular gospel. And the reality is that drugs make people codependent. And, you know, the allopathic community sought back in the 30s, if I remember correctly, to outlaw everything, naturopathy, herbology, homeopathy, to outlaw everything when it formed a medical association. Okay? So it really comes down to, on some levels, if a doctor becomes truly committed to healing, there is a small movement that they are beginning to wake up and look at alternative medicine, integrative medicine, and approaching it from that point of view. But it really is a lack of consciousness.
Okay, so the last thing I have to
And
say
fear.
is... Huh?
And fear.
Yes. The last thing I have to say is, one of the things that you have told us to do, there's one of those 4 things that I have been struggling with for about 30 years, and that is the resentment. Because I came to understand that nobody was working toward healing me. They were working toward providing medicines to keep me coming back. And that makes them feel like, and this, I'm not making a joke, this feels like they are legal drug dealers.
Oh, they are? Oh, please. Oh my God.
That's my resentment, and that's my biggest of all.
Well,
But I can answer.
Sorry.
There's another part to this in regards to the doctors who are truly, like into the medicine, is that the pharmaceutical companies, again, it goes back to money. The pharmaceutical companies give them a lot of bonuses for every prescription that is filled from their product. They get paid vacations, they get paid cars, they get rewards. So again, they get the dangling of the money is in front of there. But also, knowing that doctors are, I've watched them kill my mother. Basically, my mother became a legal prescription drug addict, and it started before I was born, and it started with Valium. So they're not out to. They experiment on us, and we're guinea pigs. So this is where the self-care revolution comes in, and what it is that Robin is teaching and trying to get out into the world is to take care of yourself. Start educating yourself, doing things like coming and doing things like this and doing these talks. I have a great wealth of webinars that are offered all the time that I could forward on to you guys, and you can jump in on webinars to learn about vitamins, learn about nutrition. But it's about, it's supposed to, rather than having resentment, it's to activate the revolution within yourself and go, I'm going to take care of myself. And trust me, that's what happened with me when I was diagnosed at 21 years old with cancer. And my thought was, this doctor's full of shit. And I went home and I took charge of my life, of my body. Because who knows your body better than you?
I'm pretty old. I've been through a lot of this. I've worked through a good deal of this. I am totally aware of my ability to not get caught up in that system. I am resistant. I am resentful because I am currently trying my best to do what I have learned over all these years with all the kind of help that I've had from a variety of people. So I guess the only thing left for me to do is to just continue to do what I know what's best for my body. When I took that knowledge into my being, which was about 15 years ago, that changed how I interacted with doctors. But there is a great deal of information. I was trying to write. I didn't bring paper. Paper and pencil I live with. Doing it this way is hard.
It is very hard.
But I was trying to keep up as best I can, and I'm counting on her because she's right.
I saw a great note too.
So my point is basically that I am on the right road. I know this, having taken over responsibility for my body. But there's a lot of information to cover, and I would love to be in some aspect of the social network that allows me to be a voice among those who are trying to get doctors to be honest, to learn more, to provide the kinds of things that we really need from them, not the crap they keep putting in a bottle and selling it to us like legal drug dealers.
Yeah.
It goes back to also, when you go to a doctor, you're going to pick and choose the doctor that is, has the degree behind it, but also has the integrity within them.
Well, you don't know that until you start making inquiries. You know, with some of the other practitioners here, may have medical physicians that they work with, that they respect. I know there's a couple that, but going back to your original statement, which is the resentment, okay?
Yeah.
One, what has taken place has taken place. And you did everything you thought was right to do at the time. The fact that you woke up and have a different insight, and now you're working on those insights and those understandings, there's no place in your mind for the resentment to stay. You can't be angry with them, and you can't even be angry with you, because you did make changes. You're now dealing with it from what I would call a position of strength. You're more in control of who you are and your health and your determinations. The resentment will only work against you. And
That's what I recognized when you spoke about.
yeah, and you know, letting go, in fact, I'm working on a manuscript called Letting Go. And letting go of resentment is extremely difficult. Letting go of anger, guilt, frustration, all of that is very difficult. However, letting go is difficult, but the rewards are fabulous. Okay? And by letting go of the resentment and just, okay, you know, I learned. All right, wow, what a great lesson. They didn't kill me, thank God.
Well, maybe not.
Well, we're all going to leave.
Yes, yes.
You know,
I just don't want anyone to speed it up for me.
Amen. Okay?
Yes.
So,
Go on your terms, not someone else's.
yeah. So I would, you know, let it go ASAP. And whenever you find yourself getting into that, question what else is going on that's triggering that resentment, because it may not be that that's the real issue. It may very well be that there's something else going on in the here and now, but it allows you to go back to that as the justification for the anger that the resentment will bring. Or, okay? So look at it from that point of view. That way it gives you an opportunity to change your perception. And if you change your perception, you'll see things from a different point of view. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, hopefully you got what you came for. And then some. And I have business cards in the back, so you can always write to me with questions, and we can go from there. Okay.
Have some books
Thank,
in the back.
and I have books too, and thank you so much for your time and attention.